Sydney has been now crowned the second most unaffordable housing market in the entire world.
Is the rental crisis easing? Not really. Here's what's going on.
If you think the rental housing crisis is tough right now, you should see what it's like on the streets for all male applicants.
13.4% of rental properties across Australia are affordable for a family where both parents are earning the minimum wage. That's over $90,000 a year.
Well, Australia's population, as you know, has exploded. We've had the fastest growth that we've seen in decades, and we just don't have enough homes, not even close.
I hate when old people are like, oh, I had a house when I was your age. Oh, I'd fucking hope so. It costs a loaf of fucking bread. I'd have fucking the house every day of the week.
This family in Australia refused to sell their home for $33 million, forcing developers to build hundreds of homes all around their 5-acre parcel.
Australia is in the middle of a housing rental crisis, and for many people, it no longer feels like a headline. It feels like everyday life. Across the country, rents are rising faster than wages, homes are becoming harder to find, and the simple act of securing a place to live has turned into a stressful battle. Behind every statistic is a real person, a real family, and a real story that often goes unheard. For renters, the experience has become exhausting. People are attending inspections with dozens of others, applying again and again, and still walking away empty-handed. Some are facing sudden rent hikes they can't afford, while others are being asked to move out with little notice. Many are forced into smaller spaces, shared housing, or long commutes just to keep a roof over their heads. This crisis is affecting everyone: students, working professionals, migrants, families, and even long-term residents who never imagined they'd struggle to find a home. People are spending a huge part of their income on rent, cutting back on groceries, healthcare, and savings just to survive. The pressure is constant, and the stress is real. Let's listen, share, and understand the reality of Australia's housing rental crisis.
Who wants to know if rents are easing yet? Well, I'm going to tell you. Is the rental crisis easing? Not really. Here's what's going on. Vacancies rose slightly in June from 1.2% to 1.3%, but we're still way below a balanced market. So, how tight is it, you might ask? Well, every capital city except Melbourne and Sydney are sitting well below 1% vacancy. Tenants might hope for relief, but unfortunately it's not here yet. Not until new homes are actually getting built and not just approved. So, thinking of purchasing a home and getting out of the rental market and would like to know your borrowing capacity? Follow the link in my bio or send me a message.
The Australian rental market is in crisis, and on top of sky-high rent increases over the last little while, we're now seeing that rental vacancy rates are down over a third. But it gets even worse when you look at it on a state-by-state basis. We look at Victoria, that has the biggest fall in rental vacancy rates, with vacancies down over 62% there. Sydney coming in a close second, down 42%. Then we've got Perth down 41% and Brisbane down 26%. It's no wonder with these sorts of declines in vacancy that rents are on the rise, and it means that renters have very little option because there's not properties out there for them to move to if they don't want to accept the massive rental increases that they're copping from their landlords.
If you think the rental housing crisis is tough right now, you should see what it's like on the streets for all male applicants. When a homeowner and property manager are going through all the applications, let me assure you, all male applicants are so far down the pecking order, it's not funny. We're going top, couple, second, family, third, girls, fourth, old heads, fifth, all male applicants. So just really not sure what to do going forward here, but me and my two friends, after our singular application for the only house we've applied for was declined today, I'm lost for answers.
Sydney has been now crowned the second most unaffordable housing market in the entire world. And my prediction, in the next 12 to 24 months, it's going to be the most unaffordable place to purchase a house. This is what it looked like just 2 years prior. Hong Kong was miles ahead at first place with 16.7, and additionally, Melbourne and also Adelaide was also part of this list. But now, Hong Kong's actually become more affordable and Sydney's gone more expensive. And to add to that, Adelaide has jumped to 6th position with Melbourne not far behind. But now, we've also got another 2 cities in Australia with Brisbane and also Perth entering the list. And this is the latest data on median house prices as of 2025. And it's crazy to think now Sydney is closer to 2 million than 1.5 million, and also Brisbane, Canberra, Melbourne, and Adelaide have reached above $1 million in median house price.
The Australian housing market must crash, and here's why that's actually a good thing. Right now, an entire generation of young people are locked out of the market. They can't afford to buy. They're stuck renting, falling further and further behind every single year. When housing takes up 45% of household income, people have nothing left to spend. The economy stagnates, innovation dies. We become a nation of property speculators instead of entrepreneurs. The market must crash to restore affordability, to give the next generation a chance to free up capital for productive investment instead of dead money sitting in overpriced property. So there are 2 forces that will make this happen. 1, immigration cuts, and 2, high interest rates. The bond market's already pricing in an RBA rate hike, and APRA knows this. They're planning to make it happen in a controlled way. As painful as this will be for property owners, it's necessary for Australia's long-term prosperity.
I don't have any other support, and I've tried every fucking agency from Redcliffe to Logan to Gold Coast to Redlands, and I'm from Redlands. So yeah, and now these videos are going kind of viral, like semi-viral around my area, and people are like, are you okay? And like, truth is, no, blindsided by an eviction, and I can't rely on anybody anymore, and I'm trying to get every bit of help that I can. I did not expect this, and everybody knows about the rental crisis in Queensland at the moment. All I can say is I'm being completely honest about my journey on here, and if you want to follow, you can, but I did not expect the amount of support that I have received, and I really do appreciate it. I don't know where I'm going to be in 2 weeks, but it's like, I don't know. I'm going to sort it out, and I'm doing everything I can, and thank you everybody for the suggestions.
I hate when old people are like, oh, I had a house when I was your age. Oh, I'd fucking hope so. It costs a loaf of fucking bread. I'd have fucking the house every day of the week. Fucking 3 loaves of bread and a fucking cream bun got your house back in the day. I'd have to own a bakery. Or 2. I have to own 2 bakeries now to have a fucking house. 2 bakeries. That's like fucking thousands of loaves of bread and fucking heaps more cream buns than fucking 1. I had a fucking house when fuck.
So I am living in a shed that is decked out as a house. Currently I have a generator running for power, and we literally have a better situation than like 50,000 people in my country because of a housing crisis. I guess generational wealth now is owning a shed.
This family in Australia refused to sell their home for $33 million, forcing developers to build hundreds of homes all around their 5-acre parcel. Ever since 2012, the family has been receiving multiple offers from developers because the developers can build up to 50 homes on the 5-acre parcel, each home being worth nearly $750,000. Now, the family has refused all offers, even the latest one of $33 million, stating you simply can't put a price on our family home. Now, my question to you is, would you keep the home or would you sell that home for $33 million? Drop it in the comments below.
Guys, see, if you think of, say, you want Japan, you want travel, you want come abroad. I guess some guys where they emboss me, they say they want come to Australia and they look for where they go stay. They want stay in my house. So guys, if you stay like place like this now, I they pay $1,000 every fortnight, which is like 2 weeks. So $500 a week. Alright? So now if you come my house, say you want stay there, you want stay with me for 2-bedroom apartment. Now $1,000 I they pay every 2 weeks. So I can't tell you, say may you help me, they pay $300 a week to support me so I can pay my rent. And you can't tell me, say I don't want to help you to, may you stay in my house. So you must put that in mind. Say if you don't want to travel, you want to come a new country, you want Japan, make sure say you get your house rent for the meantime before you start working, so that you don't come be a burden to someone. Because some people, they go through a lot of stress, when they abroad because of the house rents and the food, every expenses. So if you can add them up, now big problem to the person. So this information it will help people who want to travel for the first time, so they will prepare themselves. Make sure say you get money to pay a house rent. So when you go there, you no go and be a burden to somebody. You understand? Not the same person with that abroad one they hard or they harsh. You have to let's say it's not easy for anywhere in the world. And for you to succeed, you have to work very hard. You have to pass through many difficulties. You understand? Now waiting go ginger you, make you feel work hard, support yourself. Understand? I hope this message makes sense for people who want first travelers and people who want to travel the first time. All right, one love, guy. All right, bye.
When I actually have people pulling me up and people living in parks, in the tents, you've got families there all living under bridges in Brisbane who are workers. A lot of them are workers, but they can't afford to pay the rent.
Yeah.
We're still opening up the bloody floodgates for migrants to come out here into the country. In 22 to 23, we brought in 737,000 people into the country. Now, Albanese said we need skilled workers. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Of that 737,000, 51,605 were skilled migrants. Of course, they could have been hairdressers, whatever, okay?
Right, yeah, okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Of that, only 800 were, of the 1,800 were in the construction industry.
Got an awful lot of new nail polish places opening up.
Correct.
Yeah. It's fucking terrible.
Correct. So it's an absolute joke of what they do. So this is driven up. At the moment, it's estimated we're short 650,000 homes for what Australians need or want. You can't keep bringing in more migrants in the country, which are... just come here. You should have seen the traffic banked up. It's just an absolute stop. It's like a parking lot out there on the Bruce Highway. And it happens all the time.
Something that I don't think you can argue against is housing affordability and shelter being such a fundamental thing. I mean, you have to live somewhere. If it's the case that the multiple of your income that's requiring to service a mortgage or rent is now reaching a point where it's crippling your lifestyle or it's simply unaffordable. You have to either live on the fringe of somewhere with all the lack of infrastructure that produces, share a house. And you could argue, well, you're just going to have to change. This is going to be something that culturally is going to have to shift. We're going to have to shift away from the notion of a block.
It shouldn't be. It's just a natural... It's naturally... In times past, you just build more houses for more people. It would be a very simple process. But there seem to be blockages on that now. I think there's a real estate lobby that wants to control prices and drive it up. Like banks benefit so much from mortgages, obviously. It's seen as risk-free lending if they can keep driving up prices. I think the big four banks in Australia made profits of $30 billion most years, or they certainly did a couple of years ago. And half that money will be sent overseas, Citibank and so on, that own these Australian companies. But you think of $30 billion coming out of the economy, sucked out of the economy every year. That is austerity in itself.
Australia has figured out how to beat the housing crisis. I never thought I would live to see the day where I could say that Australia has figured out how to defeat the housing crisis. Tax unused bedrooms. That is right. Now, it's actually not as stupid as it sounds, kind of, because there is a way in the United States that we could that people plan on getting housing prices to come down, and that's tax unused land, right? Like, for example, if you have a house and the first 5 acres, and you're not designated as a farm or a homestead or something like that, first 5 acres are included, but any land over that, they were thinking about taxing, and that way people would be less likely to buy a large amount of land, giving more places to build homes, even though that's kind of not the problem. But here's the thing. Australia is basically trying to pass a law that says if you own a home and you're only utilizing 1 or 2 bedrooms, let's say you have 2 parents and 1 kid, whatever, like that. You can't say that this is a domicile somebody's sleeping in, right? You're going to get taxed on that. They're saying that this will de-incentivize people to buy large homes, which means that there'll be more large homes, which will bring the price of large homes down. Not taxing unused homes, not taxing homes that are not homestead, for example, but taxing unused bedrooms. That's what they're saying they're going to do. That's going to help with the housing crisis.
Well, Australia's population, as you know, has exploded. We've had the fastest growth that we've seen in decades, and we just don't have enough homes, not even close. If you've tried to rent or buy lately, you already know what that means, and we've all seen the queues around the corner. In the 2024 financial year, we built only 174,000 homes, and our population grew by 436,000. So that's a gap of 260,000 homes that we don't have. The rental listings are down by about 15% on average, which means that more people are competing for fewer properties. The demand is surging and the supply is lagging. The pressure is building everywhere. Rents, property prices, competition. There are ways, in my view, to alleviate these pressures. Things such as faster planning and development approvals through supporting small scale mum and dad development can also add extra rental stock without having to rely on big builders or big developments. We could incentivise for affordable housing grants, tax breaks, flexible zoning. All of these things could help close the gap between supply and demand. With population growth, we're also seeing an increased number of VCAT applications. There's more disputes between tenants and landlords than ever. Tenants are being asked to move out so the property can be re-let, hopefully at a higher rent. But when population growth outpaces the housing supply in this way, everyday housing stress turns into a legal headache. And my name's Nellie Shute and I'm a property lawyer at MLS Legal. Well, most people don't realise that when the market tightens in such a manner, the law becomes more important than ever. If you're renting, leasing out a property, or you're thinking about buying or selling in this market, don't just follow the headlines. Understand what's really driving the pressure and make sure you know where you stand legally. If you think that my perspective is incorrect, or please follow, share, and drop it in my comments.
As we come to the end of this discussion, one thing is clear. Australia's housing rental crisis is no longer a short-term problem. It is a structural issue, and if it's not addressed properly, the effects will only grow deeper and more damaging over time. Housing is not just about shelter. It shapes health, productivity, education, family stability, and overall quality of life. When housing becomes insecure, everything else starts to fall apart. The long-term effects of the rental crisis are already visible. People are delaying major life decisions like starting families or pursuing further education. Young professionals are moving further away from city centres, spending hours commuting just to afford rent. Students are living in overcrowded conditions. Families are forced to move frequently, disrupting children's education and mental well-being. Over time, this instability creates a society that is more stressed, less productive, and divided. One of the biggest risks is that housing stress becomes the new normal. When people accept constant rent hikes and insecure leases as unavoidable, pressure on policymakers decreases and meaningful change gets delayed. This is dangerous. A healthy economy cannot function when a large portion of the population is focused only on survival. Productivity drops, mental health costs rise, and inequality widens. So what needs to change? The first and most important solution is increasing housing supply, not just luxury apartments, but genuinely affordable rental housing. Governments at all levels must prioritize large-scale construction of social and affordable homes. This means faster approvals, better planning, and partnerships with private developers that are tied to affordability targets, not just profit margins. Second, there must be stronger renter protections. Rent increases need to be more transparent, predictable, and regulated. Longer lease options, limits on excessive rent hikes, and clearer eviction rules would provide renters with stability and confidence. When people feel secure in their homes, they can plan their lives better and contribute more positively to the economy. Third, infrastructure and population planning must work together. Population growth, including migration, needs to align with housing capacity. Growth itself is not the problem. Poor planning is. If housing, transport, healthcare, and employment systems grow together, pressure on rentals can be reduced significantly. Ignoring this balance only pushes the crisis further. Another key solution is support for first-time buyers and long-term renters. Helping people transition out of the rental market through realistic pathways to ownership can ease demand on rentals. At the same time, long-term renters need support systems that recognize renting as a permanent housing option, not a temporary phase. The effects of solving the rental crisis would be powerful. Lower housing stress would improve mental health outcomes, reduce homelessness, increase workforce participation, and allow people to save, invest, and plan for the future. Businesses would benefit from a more stable workforce. Communities would become stronger and more connected. Children would grow up in more secure environments. But none of this will happen without urgency. Delaying action only increases the cost. financially, and socially. Housing shortages don't fix themselves. Without intervention, rent will continue to rise, vacancy rates will remain low, and inequality will deepen. That's why conversations like this matter. Listening to people's experiences, sharing opinions, and demanding better solutions creates pressure for change. Real solutions come from acknowledging the scale of the problem and committing to long-term planning, not short-term fixes. Housing should provide stability, not stress, security, not fear. And until that becomes the reality for everyone, this conversation cannot end.